Stalingrad, 1942.
What's up everyone, my name is Mike, and welcome to another GameCast Rewind. Today I'll be taking a look at Call of Duty 2 and the Back2Fronts mod for PC. Enjoy. My gateway into the Call of Duty series was Call of Duty 2. I was still in high school when it came out, and I remember playing it on my laptop that could barely run any new games, but like most games I would play on that thing, I would keep the settings and resolution low and that would suffice. That's what happens when you have no money or a job. At the time, I had never played the first game, so I had no idea what I was in for. I just wanted to shoot shit. Ultimately, I ended up with a lot of fond memories because it wasn't like any other World War II shooter that I played before it. It was intense, it was my first time experiencing the iron sights mechanic, and the gameplay doesn't require much thinking, just aim, shoot, and stay in cover. Developed by Infinity Ward and published by Activision, Call of Duty 2 was released for PC in October 2005 and Xbox 360 in November of that same year. For this review, I played the PC version. I'll also be covering the Back2Fronts mod, which revamps the gameplay and includes new weapons, missions, and enemies, among other things. So let's take a look at Call of Duty 2 and see if it's still as good as I remember it. All of the characters, minus the tank commander, play exactly the same. You can run, jump, crouch, crawl, lean left and right, man turrets, mantle over small obstacles, perform a melee attack, hold your breath to steady your aim when sniping, and aim down your sights. Speaking of iron sights, Call of Duty 2 offers the option to disable crosshairs if you really want to immerse yourself in the combat. There's 4 difficulty modes: easy, regular, hardened, and veteran, and you must complete one mission to advance to the next. Any already completed missions can be replayed from the mission select menu. Now the Back2Fronts mod gives you more options in general, all of which are meant to help you customize your experience for more realistic or immersive gameplay. You can select or randomize different weapon loadouts for missions, enable or disable friendly fire, toggle on and off ally names that appear over the AI characters, you have the option to disable music, even the ability to change different aspects of the HUD, which has been redesigned in the mod. Back2Fronts also adds a few new immersive mechanics to the gameplay that fit in well with Call of Duty 2's fast-paced action. The mod adds in sprinting, which does drain stamina but allows you to quickly move from location to location. As opposed to the vanilla game, several weapons have alternate fire modes, and many of the new scoped weapons include an actual scope view when aiming, which is really cool and does add a bit of immersion. The mod also allows you to carry light machine guns, which is not something you can normally do in the vanilla game. Call of Duty 2 ditches the necessity of acquiring health kits to restore health in favor of a regenerating health system. This mechanic alone makes it obvious that Call of Duty 2 is not in any way an accurate or realistic depiction of what soldiers experience during combat. Not that the first game was realistic by any means, but I think regenerating health was introduced to put more of an emphasis on the action and the game's cinematic style. I actually don't mind regenerating health in most games, so I'm not really complaining. Call of Duty 2 includes an autosave function. However, the game doesn't always save at the best times. For example, the game decided to save right before an enemy tank blew me away, so every time I loaded the checkpoint, I would die immediately, forcing me to restart. Yeah, that can be frustrating. In one of the Back2Fronts missions, I eliminated all but one of the German mortar crews, and not once did it save during that time, so of course I died and had to do it all over again. You're going to be blasting away tons of German enemies, and at your disposal is your typical arsenal of World War II weaponry. If you've played any other World War II shooter ever, all of the weapons should be familiar. You've got the M1 Garand, Thompson submachine gun, MP40, Kar 98, Lee Enfield, MP44, M1 911, and other weapons that were used during the war. Each campaign exposes you to different weapons, and others, like the German weapons, can be found throughout the environments or acquired from fallen enemies. The Back2Fronts mod includes a lot of new weapons, and it's possible you may not get the chance to use all of them on your first run through the mod. The mod adds in the FG42, MP41, ZB26, and more. It adds new grenades and even new artillery guns like the PaK-43 and German C-36, for example. Now, while it may be obvious that you're doing most of the legwork, the game still manages to emphasize the fact that you're just a small part of a large conflict. You're always going to be accompanied by fellow soldiers, and yes, the friendly AI is still annoying. They like to get in your way, and they become a real nuisance in corridors and doorways. I've also seen them just standing around not shooting at nearby enemies. The enemy AI is decent. They'll run around, take cover, shoot at you, and some enemies will even carry and deploy light machine guns. Ultimately, they do the basics. However, they are very grenade happy. Very grenade happy. In fact, I think there's more grenades flying around than bullets. It's insane. I don't know if it was the developer's attempt to keep you moving, like to flush you out of cover, but the enemies are always throwing grenades, usually right at your feet. Sometimes 2 or 3 are thrown right at you, which can become irritating. Grenades are literally everywhere, you'll never run out of grenades, and both the friendly and enemy AI can pick up and throw back live grenades. For some reason you lack this ability, and that's unfortunate because it could have been extremely useful. Call of Duty 2 adds smoke grenades into the mix, and these are actually one of the more useful tools at your disposal. Smoke grenades will cover your movement, making it easy to flank enemies or get past enemy machine gunners and tanks. The Back2Fronts mod adds in new character models to the roster, including German Honor Guards, German Winter SS, Summer Russians, and even British paratroopers. Now that I've played this again years after release and after finally playing the first game, I can honestly say that not much has changed here since the original. I mean, sure, there's obvious visual improvements and some tweaks to the gameplay, but if you've played the first game, most of the experience here feels exactly the same. Run, shoot, blow something up, rinse and repeat. On your HUD is a compass with a star, sometimes lettered icons, that identify exactly where you need to go. You can also bring up a list of objectives at any time during gameplay, so it's basically impossible to get lost or not know what to do. Call of Duty 2 is a very scripted experience, but unlike the first game, you are given a little freedom during missions. While the first game holds your hand every step of the way, Call of Duty 2 removes the training wheels, but there's still somebody there to make sure you don't fall. That's the best way to describe it. Every mission is linear for the most part, but many areas allow you to approach encounters and situations in slightly different ways. But don't get too excited, the battles will still play out the same no matter how you change up your approach. It's just that now you don't have to tackle it the exact same way on repeated playthroughs. Straying too far off the beaten path will result in your death because instead of invisible walls or minefields, identified by small signs in the ground. During many missions, it feels like you're navigating from one small battle arena to another, and within those arenas are numerous paths to your objective. Some missions throw in multiple objectives that can be completed in any order, and these are actually a nice change of pace compared to the typical style of making a beeline from here to there. Even though you're given more options when it comes to completing objectives, it's still a linear experience at heart. All I'm saying is don't go into this thinking the missions offer complete freedom, as seen in a game like Medal of Honor European Assault, for example. If you've played other military-style shooters or World War II shooters in general, the objectives themselves are nothing really new. You'll be defending areas, which means fending off waves of Germans before the timer reaches 0. You'll have to blow up German artillery and tanks, secure documents, infiltrate buildings and clear out hostiles, man anti-aircraft guns to shoot down enemy planes, and other stuff like that. There's far less vehicle missions compared to the first game, and the only vehicles you get to drive are tanks. Any other time you're in a vehicle or form of transport, it's usually as a passenger. Most of the time you're engaging enemies on foot. Now you will be engaging enemy vehicles quite frequently, usually enemy tanks. Sometimes you have to blow up moving tanks, which can prove to be a challenge if you don't know how to utilize smoke grenades. Many objectives require you to capture an area or push back enemy forces. This normally involves you shooting every enemy in sight and advancing forward. However, you will receive no real help from your fellow soldiers outside of them distracting and killing a few nearby enemies. If you need to advance on an enemy position, they won't move without you. Killing enemies is much easier if you stay with your squad, but if you move too far ahead, you can easily be outnumbered and killed, so it's best to move forward little by little. You can always run really far ahead and wait for your allies to catch up, in which case they usually clear out the area of enemies, but considering you would be surrounded and assaulted with grenades before they can get there, that makes it a risky move. The Back2Fronts mod includes objectives that follow the mold of the vanilla game: run, shoot, defend an area, blow something up, etc. However, there are some annoyances. One of the new Soviet missions has you charging at enemies across an open battlefield with very little cover, and if you don't throw smoke grenades, you're basically guaranteed to die. This sequence in particular can be very trial and error. There's another mission that has you sniping enemies, and I learned the hard way that if you move to where you're not supposed to, you just die immediately, but there's no real obvious warning. The St. Lamar mission is cool in design, but constantly getting shot through the foliage means it's very hard to take cover from gunfire, making it a bit tedious to get through. This mission also requires you to clear out houses of German forces, and the friendly AI refused to accompany me, forcing me to clear out each house by myself.
You are about to embark upon the great crusade, toward which we have striven these many months.
Just like the first game, you play as multiple silent protagonists across 3 separate campaigns. The game starts with the Soviet campaign, and it's the shortest of the 3. You play as Private Vasily Kozlov of the 13th Guards Rifle Division. You'll destroy a German stronghold in Stalingrad, capture a rail yard and train station, and the campaign ends with you capturing and defending Stalingrad City Hall. In the British campaign, you primarily play as Sergeant John Davis of the 7th Armored Division, but a couple missions have you playing as British Tank Commander David Welsh. This campaign takes you through Africa, and David's missions in particular have you driving a tank where you blast away German tanks and infantry. These missions play out just like the tank missions in the first game. As Sergeant Davis, you'll destroy a German supply station, defend a town from German counterattacks, and the final mission of the campaign takes place during the Battle for Khan as part of Operation Overlord. In the third and final campaign, you play as American Corporal Bill Taylor of the 2nd Ranger Battalion. The Saving Private Ryan influence is immediately apparent at the start of this campaign, with the first mission having you take part in the assault of Point du Hoc on the coast of Normandy. After this, you'll capture a nearby town, serve as a sniper against German mortar crews, and you'll even take part in the capture of Hill 400, otherwise known as the capture of Bergstein. And the final mission has you taking part in Operation Plunder at the Rhine River crossing into Germany. I think it's obvious that the story is made up of your typical World War II stuff you've probably seen in other shooters. Basically, you take part in video game versions of historic missions across 3 separate campaigns. That's really the gist of it. There are no real standout characters, and the voice acting is decent. It's actually a little better than what we heard in the first game. All missions are separated by loading screens that include images of a letter, journal entry, or something of that nature, detailing events of your mission, and sometimes you'll get to watch actual footage from the war. The Back2Fronts mod extends the single player with all new missions. In the Soviet campaign, you'll get captured and need to break out of prison. You'll be sniping enemies in Stalingrad, even take part in the siege of Leningrad. One of the new American missions has you clearing out a farm in a forest of German forces before capturing and defending the town of Angeville. Another has you eliminating German mortar crews before clearing out German resistance in the village of St. Lamar. You'll also disable a communications base. You'll have to secure the town of Teuferville, I hope I said that right, and establish a field HQ and a church in one of the new British missions. The mod also includes a new German campaign with 2 missions. The first has you capturing key structures in Stalingrad, and the other has you pushing back British paratroopers and destroying enemy field guns. Call of Duty 2 showcases an obvious visual improvement over the first game. The character models and texture work looked pretty good for the time. You can see little details like scratches and grooves on weapons. I love the smoke effects, and there's a decent amount of particle effects that help enhance the action. By today's standards, the game clearly looks dated, but I remember it looking pretty great back when it released. The new and redesigned weapons introduced in the Back2Fronts mod look great, and the reload animations that accompany the new weapons look pretty good, as do the vanilla reload animations in general. I do think some of the new missions in the Back2Fronts mod could use some more lighting or brightness adjustments, because some areas are just very dark, making it hard to see. You don't get a flashlight or anything, so you just have to deal with it. Some things haven't aged gracefully, like character animations, which can appear stiff at times. Enemy death animations are scripted, object and foliage pop-in is rampant, you can see distant models are low poly, and some of the backgrounds can appear blurry. I also wish there was some more gore effects in general. Now, the audio work is basically on the same level as the first game, which means it's good. During combat, you'll hear plenty of explosions, gunfire, soldiers will be shouting and screaming, you may hear planes soaring overhead, and the sound effects in general do a great job at making the battles feel intense. Even when there's nothing to shoot, which isn't often, you'll hear gunfire and explosions in the distance. My only complaint is that the tank machine gun fire sounds weak. I had the same complaint with the first game. Back2Fronts includes all kinds of new sound effects. Gunfire now sounds realistic, more powerful, and it's satisfying to hear the echo of your shots. There's even new enemy death sound effects like new choking and gargling sounds. As for the music, I'll be honest, I don't really notice it. The sounds of the gameplay easily drown out most of the music, and none of the tunes I can think of really stand out to me. I know the Back2Fronts mod includes new menu music. I don't know the name of this song, but it sounds creepy as fuck, and it manages to create a really grim atmosphere. It's quite memorable, I love it. It's just a shame you don't hear it more often, like during gameplay or something. When talking about the performance, the vanilla game ran smooth. Back2Fronts ran fine for the most part, but during a couple of missions the frame rate randomly took a shit. I also experienced a few bugs during my time with the mod. I did get stuck in an object and couldn't move. One mission requires you to clear out a house, and when I did that, the objective wouldn't complete. Eventually, a random German spawned inside the house, and I was finally able to proceed after I killed him. Also, when playing one of the standard missions with the mod, I was required to enter an armored car, but the car wouldn't move to our next objective and I couldn't get out. Finally, in one of the American missions, I couldn't plant explosives to blow up the enemy support vehicle. I had fun with Call of Duty 2, but now that I've played it again, I can honestly say that my love for this entry compared to the rest is purely due to nostalgia. Going into this, I thought there was more of a reason I enjoyed this entry the most, but no, it's just nostalgia. I admit it because it's true. When I first played this years ago, I had never played the original game, but now that I have, I can't really say what makes this leaps and bounds better than the first. It looks better and includes some tweaks and minor additions, but there's really nothing about Call of Duty 2 that makes it significantly different than its predecessor, at least when talking about the single player. The core gameplay is basically unchanged. It's not a bad game or anything, and considering how popular this entry is, I'm actually surprised it never received any expansions. I'm not considering Call of Duty 2 Big Red 1 as an expansion. I'm talking about a real expansion pack like Call of Duty's United Offensive expansion. This was my first time modding the game, and I think the Back2Fronts mod is an excellent piece of work that deserves recognition. It makes some significant changes that can really enhance the experience and get you immersed in the combat. The new missions are a great extension of the game that also fit in with the mold of the existing ones. If you enjoy the Call of Duty 2 gameplay, Back2Fronts is just more of the same with some added bonuses, although it does have some technical issues and bugs that can stop progress, forcing you to either load previously saved games, restart missions, or cheat. Hopefully these will be ironed out in future releases, if it's even still being developed.
Don't shoot! Please! Nicht schießen! We have wounded here!
Ultimately, I would recommend Call of Duty 2 to fans of the series and first-person shooters. Even though I realize that my love for the game is due to nostalgia, it does include some new features that I consider to be improvements over the first game, so based on that alone, I would say this is the better entry overall. However, if you've never played the original or this before, I can't really say there's a lot here that makes it drastically different. It's a bit faster paced, there's a little more freedom when it comes to missions, and there's plenty of action. I never did try the multiplayer in this game, but maybe the developers changed it up significantly compared to that of the original, I don't know. Call of Duty 2 is a solid game, and I would put it up there on my list of excellent World War II shooters. It's a very scripted experience with cinematic influences, and I can't say there's a lot of replay value when it comes to the single player, but at least it's fun from beginning to end.
500,000 soldiers and...
Thanks for tuning in, I hope this video proved helpful. Stick with GameCast for more quality content, including the latest gaming news, podcasts, let's plays, and even more reviews. Be sure to check out my channel, Gaming Pastime, for new game reviews released every week. My name is Mike, and I thank you for watching.
On the 8th of May, 1945, the German armed forces surrender unconditionally to the Allies. At a cost of 50 million deaths, the war in Europe is finally over. Throughout the Allied nations, Victory in Europe Day is officially celebrated, marking the defeat of Nazi Germany and the fall of the Third Reich.